Hello everyone, this is Matthew from Miscellaneous Debris, and welcome to another exciting edition of Wrestling on Tap. Today we are going to focus on the WrestleMania weekend that was WrestleMania 34, a little bit of NXT Takeover, a little bit of WrestleMania, the Raw and Smackdown afterwards, and what we can kind of come to expect from the next week's worth of tapings, which would be the Superstar Shakeup. So I'm going to try and keep this as short as I possibly can because I know you don't want to sit through 5 hours of me talking. That being said, let me start out with the live experience as a whole. I did attend some of the events this weekend. I did attend NXT Takeover on Saturday night. I attended WrestleMania 34, and I was in attendance for SmackDown Live on Tuesday. The only event I did not go to WWE related was Raw on Monday night, but I had a very special person celebrating a very special birthday, so I was not about to miss out on that. That being said, the live experience as a whole was great. The tickets were relatively inexpensive for the seats that I sat in and the price that I paid for them. The NXT Takeover, I was in the first row of the upper bowl, which was a fantastic seat. I was directly across from the entrance ramp, so I got to see all of the entrances perfectly. The production value of NXT, though it doesn't have the grandeur and the cinematic quality, I guess is a good word for it, that WrestleMania or SmackDown and Raw for that matter have, but for what little splash they make production-wise, they make up for it a lot in the in-ring action. And I think that if they had a bigger production, I think it would take away from the product. I think the fact that they don't have a very large production about it is one of the main draws to it. Now, at WrestleMania, I was in the third row of the upper bowl, opposite hard camera, but at the entrance ramp side. Now, those were a little more expensive, but still relatively inexpensive, and they were still great seats. I could see the ring perfectly. We could hear everything perfectly. I still felt the fire from the pyro. You know, they were great seats. The crowd around me was great. You know, everyone was engaged in conversation, giving predictions, you know, commenting on the matches, showing, you know, the great spirit that the WWE universe does have. There weren't lines for anything except the bathroom and the merchandise, which the merchandise, you know, I gotta say, weak sauce on the merchandise because they didn't have stuff. I mean, they had very little. There was just not a lot of selection when it comes to the array of superstars. I mean, they had certain people featured: AJ Styles, Roman Reigns, John Cena, WrestleMania itself, along with a Brock Lesnar Suplex City t-shirt. Those were the mainstays that they had at the merchandise tables. The staff was very friendly at all of the events. Never had a problem with it. The crowds were hot at all of the events. Also at SmackDown, I was in the 7th row, next to the ramp on the floor, holding a big giant pink sign that said "Hi P." It was my daughter's birthday on Monday, so to SmackDown and held up a sign that said "Hi P." The experience as a event goer for the weekend was absolutely great. Parking was fine. It was as expensive as you'd think that you would pay in downtown New Orleans. The traffic was a little atrocious coming out of WrestleMania 34, but that's to be expected as well. So overall, as a live event goer, I had an absolute blast. It was worth my time. It was worth not getting that much sleep. It was worth walking. It was worth having your eardrums blown out by the pyro. It was just a great experience. Wouldn't trade it for the world. My 10-year-old daughter had an absolute blast. Hopefully she's going to get just as hooked on it as I am, because that was about the age when I started watching. Top marks, absolutely. Now, starting out with NXT Takeover, the highlights for me absolutely were the ladder match, Ciampa versus Gargano, and Aleister Black winning. Now, in the ladder match, the big men played their roles to perfection as far as I'm concerned. Killian Dane and Lars Sullivan both looked devastating and really got themselves over as monsters. I liked the innovative offense that Cole and EC3 and Ricochet used, and also a Velveteen Dream. My gosh, I like how they incorporated the ladder as a tool, not just something to jump off of. If you ever listen to Chris Jericho describe the ladder match that he had with Shawn Michaels, it was very much like that. It was less about using the ladder as a spot creator, but more as a tool to hurt the other opponents. Velveteen Dream gave a 5+ star performance. Some of the things that he did, I just look at it and I say, gosh, man, you know, you're taking years of your career off just by doing that one move. You know, you could have gotten yourself You could have done 500 other things that would have gotten the same reaction, especially those ladder bumps towards the end of the match. They just look scary. But again, to his credit, he's willing to go out there and do that. So my head is off to you. You gave a 5+ star performance. Adam Cole, EC3, Ricochet, you all get top marks. EC3's first match in NXT. I never watched TNA, so I have no clue. I had no clue what to expect from EC3. I just know that he was a well-respected person in TNA because of the growth that he showed from being in NXT. Again, I don't remember him being in NXT. So this is really the first time I've seen EC3 in a wrestling match. I saw his debut where he was talking and wasn't really seeing where they were going with him, whether he was going to be a face or a heel. I think they're going for the heel route. Ricochet looked great in his debut. Adam Cole is always money, no matter what he does. He was definitely the right winner of the match, and I had to say it was the match of the night because Gargano and Ciampa, as good as that, they were both as good as each other, but I think that the outcome of Gargano Ciampa was pretty much a foregone conclusion in my book, so that kind of took away from it. So I think that would be the only criticism that I have of that match, but it was brilliant, absolutely freaking brilliant. The heat that Tommaso Ciampa has on himself is just nuclear. I think that Roman Reigns would get cheered against Tommaso Ciampa. That's all I'm saying. Absolutely brilliant on both ends. Aleister Black winning the NXT title from Andreas Cien Almas. I am not a big fan of Andreas Cien Almas. I'm a big fan of him and Selena Vega together, but I don't believe that when he gets called up to the main roster that they're going to keep her around, because Vince McMahon does not like managers, and they don't stick around long enough for them to get their footing on the main roster, so to speak. Here's hoping that changes, but I don't see it happening because I don't have a lot of faith in that happening. That being said, more on him later on in the show here. The only other thing about the Aleister Black winning the belt, it was a great match. Both men put on a great performance. I think Aleister Black is going to be absolutely fantastic when he gets called up to the main roster. I'm really looking forward to what he can do in the ring, putting him against guys like Finn Balor, Seth Rollins, The Miz, Roman Reigns, Brock Lesnar, Triple H, AJ Styles, Daniel Bryan. I mean, the list goes on and on. The dream matches that are possible are endless. So I'm really looking forward to that. The only other thing is that his celebration was sort of cut short, I felt. I don't know if they were rushing on time. They wanted to get to the Ciampa Gargano match, which was going to headline, which should have been the main event. Don't get me wrong. They had the right match in the main event slot. But it just felt like they kind of cut it short, and I don't think that, your first title win in any type of promotion, you should be allowed to celebrate as long as you humanly possibly want. So I didn't like that. And then the other thing is, the other low from that event would be the NXT taping that they had afterwards. It was Kairi Sane versus Lacey Evans. This is the episode that just aired. Today is Thursday, so it would have aired last night. The crowd really wasn't that warmed up to it. Not a lot of people were in their seats at that moment. And then at the tag team match with the War Raiders debuting, everybody was really hot when they came out, started doing their moves, and then all of a sudden their name and their their Titantron video came on, and they said War Raiders, and literally you could just hear an audible gasp in the crowd, like, WTF? That's their name? They went with War Raiders? Like, it seemed to be a very deflating moment, and they didn't do themselves any favors by enhancing the audio on this week's NXT, but it was just a very awkward debut after they debuted. It was just weird. Once everyone found out what their name was going to be, they just kind of went like, really? That's what they went with? Bummer. Now moving on to Sunday night, WrestleMania 34. WrestleMania in general was one of the best that I've seen in years. I can't remember a better one that I saw. Really, I'm trying to think of WrestleMania 25, 26, those were pretty good, but they don't compare to this. The match quality that we got, as short as some of the matches were, on paper is just astounding. AJ Styles versus Shinsuke Nakamura, Finn Balor versus The Miz versus Seth Rollins, the Usos versus New Day versus Bludgeon Brothers, Asuka versus Charlotte. Bliss versus Nia Jax. I mean, like these are dream matches. To say we didn't have any surprising winners out of all those matches would be very disingenuous, because there were a lot of surprises that happened at this show, and I think that was one of the things that made it special. It's something like I said about Star Wars: The Last Jedi, is that this show genuinely surprised me with the decisions that they made and the directions that they seem to be going with. So in this day and age, my hat is off to the WWE for doing that and getting it all, getting one over on the fans, so to speak. Out of those surprising winners, most of them were good decisions. One of them was a very bad decision. Charlotte beat Asuka, good. Brock beat Roman, good. Very unexpected. AJ won against Shinsuke Nakamura. I should say that wasn't expected, but maybe it was kind of expected. I mean, I didn't care who won. So I'm very, very happy that they went with AJ. And the turn from Shinsuke was done very, very well. Jinder beating everyone was probably the worst decision that they made. It really deflated the crowd. Really, really deflated the crowd when Rusev did not win. Speaking of deflated crowds, the crowd taking over the main event was absolutely just mind-boggling to see a whole entire stadium's worth of people just totally rejecting the top guy in the company. I would say that I feel bad for Roman. I would say that I feel bad for WWE, but they did it to themselves. They've shot themselves in the foot at every single opportunity that they have had to try and get Roman Reigns over. And where has it gotten them? It's gotten them no further than where they currently are. It's mind-boggling to me that the people that Brock Lesnar has beat and the things that they have done for Roman Reigns to end up at this point, to think going back now and saying that Roman Reigns was the wrong guy to choose out of the Shield, I think would be a gross understatement. He's got the look. He's, okay in the ring, but I'm sorry. He was the wrong guy to go with. And sooner or later, Vince McMahon is going to realize that was the wrong decision. There's nothing wrong with being wrong. There's nothing wrong with making a mistake, as long as you learn from that mistake. What I said in a previous episode was that my plan was for Roman Reigns to basically go out there and squash Brock Lesnar. As long as he got one F5 in and kicked out of it, after that, squash the beast. Don't give the crowd a chance to do what they did. And what they did was they took over that event. They had "This Is Awful" chants. They had "Roman sucks," boos, "We don't care." Beach ball mania came back. I hate beach balls at events. I hate them. I don't even like using the word hate, but I hate beach balls at live events because, one, I think it's disrespectful to the people putting on their craft in that ring. You pay a lot of money to be able to go to an event. You should be able to do and say whatever it is that you want to do. Fully believe that. But bringing in beach balls to possibly ruin somebody else's enjoyment of that show, I think it's a very rude thing to do. Now, that being said, I'm going to be a hypocrite and say that I love the fact that they did this. Mostly because at some point, the fans have to be able to get across to Vince McMahon that we do not want this. No matter what situation you put this guy in, no matter what position he is in the match, whether he's the underdog or whether he's the favorite, he's going to get booed. There's no way you can get this guy over. I'm sorry. Your plan has failed. And at some point, you have to reevaluate the situation. The definition of insanity is continually doing the same thing over and over, but expecting a different result. You are getting the same result no matter what you do. So at some point, you had to reevaluate the situation. Admit defeat. I'm sorry, but it's just one thing that you have to do. The other things that were of note, Daniel Bryan's first match back, he looked fantastic. He's being a little cautious, I think, which is fine. The spot at the very beginning of the match, I don't want them taking risks like that. Like I said, there are a million things that you can do to get that same reaction and put in that same situation of getting him out of the match for a little bit. There are a million ways you can do that without risking the health of the wrestler, especially somebody that's coming back from a concussion. With as many injuries that this guy has to his head, you would think that they would better protect that. But they're the professionals. They know what they're doing. If if Daniel Bryan is okay with it and Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn know what they're doing, I put my faith into them. I don't want to see it. Other than that, the match was great. Shane looked to be in a lot of pain. Either he's really, really good at selling, or WWE doctors did a real shit job of clearing that guy. But I digress. Nia Jax beating Alexa, that was a great moment for Nia Jax. I'm really happy for her, and I'm really happy to see her character moving forward like this. AJ versus Shinsuke was great. I wouldn't say it was as advertised because it was a little bit lower than my expectations thought it would be, but it was still a great match, and I still got to see AJ Styles versus Shinsuke Nakamura live. What am I going to do? Complain about that? No, I'm not. I mean, I can nitpick about it. The match was still good. I'm not going to complain about it because my expectations were really high, but I don't think that even with my expectations being as high as they were, I don't think that even a 10-star match would have satisfied my expectations, but it was still great, so I can't really complain about it. Rollins winning the Intercontinental Championship was really great. It was a surprising win when he first won, but now looking back in reflection, with all the months leading up to WrestleMania and all the hype and all the build around Rollins, it makes perfect sense to put the belt on Rollins. So how I didn't see that coming is beyond me. So again, surprise. Thank you very much, WWE, for being able to surprise me. But the main treat of the show, the highlight of the whole thing, was Ronda Rousey. She absolutely stole the show. That match was by far the best match of the night. And if this is what we're going to get from now on with Ronda Rousey, I'm on board. I like what I saw. She looked like an absolute natural in the ring. Her facial expressions were great. Her timing in the ring was spot on. It really did look like she was born to be in this business. I akin it a lot to Kurt Angle coming in and how quickly he was able to pick up on the business. And I think that I think we're looking at a new version of that, and I'm really, really excited to see where it goes for her. She ain't going anywhere on the Superstar Shakeup. So when I start talking about that in a few minutes, just get her out of your mind. There's no way in hell that she is going to SmackDown. Now, moving on to Raw and SmackDown. The Raw and SmackDown post-shows after WrestleMania are always the hottest crowds, as been documented by WWE 24, where, they normally give the speech of, they cheer who they normally boo, and they boo who they normally cheer. I think setting the fans up for that is very disingenuous on WWE's part, because this was the Raw and SmackDown after WrestleMania where everything went according to plan. They cheered who they were supposed to cheer. They booed who they were supposed to boo, with only one glaring exception, and that was with Roman Reigns. The other exception is for when Carmella cashed in her Money in the Bank. But the caveat to that is that every crowd pops for a Money in the Bank cash-in. Every single one. They always pop for the cash-in itself, and they always pop for the person that wins, because it's surprise. It's a good, cheap thrill pop for the crowd, and it's not indicative of crowds to come. It's just indicative of that crowd and that moment. So that being said, the only glaring exception to the boo who they normally cheer and cheer who they normally boo is the Roman Reigns, and the experiment is still going on. I don't understand the promo that he cut. Something about Vince McMahon not being able to look him in the eye. I don't know if it was, Roman saying, "Hey, I was supposed to win last night. What the hell happened?" And it was changed. But that being said, then you knew you were going to lose. So the whole point of you kicking out of 7 F5s, which did you no favors whatsoever, what was the point of that then? If you knew you were going to lose, so you can't bring that aspect of reality into this situation, because it totally undermines what you are going for as your quote-unquote top babyface. It makes no sense to go the direction that they're going. And the fact that Joe came out and said what he did, is very indicative of the crowd feeling. And I think that Joe saying that, yes, it makes me feel good inside as a fan, but the way that WWE portrays that is that meaning they're not giving up on Roman Reigns. They're not changing course with him at all. And I think that is a huge mistake. Now, please, WWE, prove me wrong. I want to be proven wrong in this case. So please prove me wrong. The crowd was really, really, really deflated on SmackDown after Rusev lost. But I do have a theory on this whole Rusev Day babyface turn experiment or transition that's going on, which I'll get into a little bit later. But I just wanted to point out the fact that, WWE is really doing their damnedest to deflate their crowds after Rusev loses. It's very, very reminiscent of when Daniel Bryan kept getting screwed over. Obviously, Rusev is not as over as Daniel Bryan, but you see where I'm going with this. I think the right people were called up. The Iconics were called up. That was a great addition, and them beating down Charlotte makes a lot of sense. You want to make an impact. It caused the cash in, which I think is great. It sets them up for a future feud with Charlotte down the road, but it also sets them up in a good position on Raw. They've made more of an impact in one episode of SmackDown Live than the Riot Squad have made in 4 months of being on television. So that's what a good debut can do for you. The Authors of Pain, they looked great in their debut. They ditched Paul Ellering, which I think I understand that Paul Ellering doesn't want to work a full-time schedule, and I get that, but I don't know that the Authors of Pain are ready to be out there on their own and giving a live mic. That being said, the Bludgeon Brothers are doing just fine without promos. So maybe they'll do fine, maybe they won't. I'm excited to see what the tag division can become on Monday Night Raw after the Superstar shakeup. I'll get into that later on. Other than that, good, solid debut. They did what they were supposed to do, and I think that AOP is going to make a really, really good impression on the WWE Universe in the coming months. Ember Moon being Nia Jax's surprise partner. Ember Moon is got star written all over her. She's got a great look. She's got a great moveset. She really connects with the crowd, and she's a really likable babyface, just like Nia Jax. And so I think that the women's division is really going to pick up on Monday Night Raw as well. I think she's a good addition. I think it was the right time for her, and I think that the obligatory NXT run with the title is always a good thing for a talent being called up to the main roster. You could say they get a little, they lose a little bit of their luster when they lose the NXT championship, but they can't take the championship with them. So I understand why they do what they do, but I think that she's going to do absolutely great in the women's division. No Way Jose debuted, and I am concerned about No Way Jose. He's very, very similar to Adam Rose, and I just don't think that character really translates well long term. Fandango fell into that problem too. For wrestlers that have a very non-serious gimmick, it's very hard for them to transition into a serious wrestler, no matter what situation may occur. It hurt Adam Rose to do that. It hurt Fandango a lot to do that. I know that Fandango's kind of found his niche in the SmackDown mid card, but when wrestlers debut, that's never their intention, and I don't think it should be the intention. But maybe No Way Jose can defy the odds and get out of that streak. I don't trust WWE to book him that way, but maybe he can be the exception. I do expect Andre Cien Almas and Drew McIntyre to debut soon. I would put McIntyre or Drew McIntyre. I would put Drew on Raw, and I would put Cien Almas on SmackDown. I would not bring Cien Almas up without Selena Vega, and I would keep them together as long as humanly possible. Those two together are like Heyman and Lesnar. You can't take them apart. They're a package deal. You have to deal with it. On to the returns, most notably Jeff Hardy and Samoa Joe. Jeff Hardy's interaction with the Woken Universe and being called Brother Nero with Balor and Rollins' reactions to it, absolutely fantastic. It brought the 6-man tag into fruition for the end of Raw, which was a good way to end Monday Night Raw. It was a very weird way to end Monday Night Raw, but it was also, very refreshing. It was a feel good ending to Raw. The babyfaces went over. Everyone got their finishing moves in. The announcer said a few things. I don't know when the last time, if ever, Monday Night Raw has been closed by the announcers, giving a sign off. But still, it was a good way to end Monday Night Raw, and I think that in itself is worth saying that this was a good show. It was a good showing from WWE, with the glaring exception of Roman Reigns. Everything else was done right. Everything else was done correctly. I just don't get the whole putting heels in positions to not be able to get over as a heel against Roman. It's just another one of those things. And until Roman turns heel or does something, it's going to be a continuously vicious cycle. But the real highlight of the whole entire live experience was being able to see AJ Styles versus Daniel Bryan live on SmackDown. I was no further than 40 feet away from that match, and seeing it live, there was no commentary in my ear. The only thing that was, it was me in the match, and that was it. No outside interference from announcers, no play-by-play, nothing feeding anything into my brain to try and make me think a certain direction. It was just Daniel Bryan versus AJ Styles, and it was literally a dream come true to see that match. And I thank WWE for doing it, and it's one of those things I'm going to remember for the rest of my life. Paige's transition the last 2 days was something special to see. It was very heartfelt retirement from her on Raw. I feel bad for her situation. Hopefully medicine gets better in the coming years, that she'll be able to get back into the ring. But if not, she's right. Edge has a life outside of the WWE. Daniel Bryan had a life outside the WWE. And there is life outside of wrestling. And, I know it's hard for wrestlers to understand that. It goes with any profession that you are in and that you give your life to. And then the day that you can't do it anymore, you don't really know what to do with yourself, and some people have a hard time with it, and I empathize with that. I really, really do. And I'm really happy that they gave her the GM role to take over from Daniel Bryan. It puts a strong alpha female into a position of power. You get to start fresh with the whole GM angle, whether she's babyface or heel. I really hope that she, stays neutral. I want her to just, be a confident female in a position of power that does what's best for SmackDown Live. Yell at the baby faces when they need to be reprimanded for things that they do or things that they say, and the same thing with the heels. If the heels are cheating, Paige calling them out on it. She's not gonna let that shit fly on her watch. So I think that she's great on the mic. I think that she'll be really good in this role. I was really advocating for her to be on color commentary or to be a manager of a stable of some type. But this role is just as good and just as prominent on television. So I think that she'll do really well. And to top off the whole WrestleMania weekend through SmackDown Live and Monday Night Raw, I just want to really quickly talk about Roman Reigns, Brock Lesnar, and where to go from there. Something has to change, and I hope that this weekend was a wake up call to Vince McMahon and company. And I think that there's only two people really that can salvage this, and one of them is Seth Rollins, and the other one is Samoa Joe. I think that you have to get Reigns out of that top babyface position on Raw. The only two guys that I can conceivably see to put in that situation would be Seth Rollins or Samoa Joe. That is stating that we don't know what's happening with the superstar shakeup. If Daniel Bryan goes to Monday Night Raw, you absolutely put Daniel Bryan in that position, and you absolutely build that brand around him. That way, it takes the heat off of Roman Reigns, but put him as a secondary character for a while. Maybe even move Reigns to SmackDown. They would never do it, but it would be a great way to get him off of the brand that is so synonymous with him. I think it helped Triple H a lot in the early 2000s when he was traded over to SmackDown from Raw for that 1 year. It's funny what the difference the situation and the environment can be on a wrestler. So that being said, let's just move right into the superstar shakeup and see where everyone's going to land here. Now, I've only done 4 for each show, so 4 choices, and some of them are package deals, but you can kind of understand why. So from Raw to SmackDown, I would move Finn Balor and the Good Brothers over to SmackDown. I would move Alexa Bliss over to SmackDown. I would move Cesaro over to SmackDown, and I would move Asuka over to SmackDown. From SmackDown to Raw, I would move the Riot Squad. I would move Rusev and Aiden English, Rusev Day as a package, Randy Orton and I would move Daniel Bryan. It's really hard to predict where these things are going to go, but if I was booking things and if I had the power to do it, that is who I would choose. With the Superstars shakeup, I think only a few things I want to come out of this, mainly with the Balor Club and for Rusev Day. So here's my Rusev theory, is that I think that the loss at Mania and the loss on SmackDown Live is long game play that WWE is playing right now. Rusev tweeted out the other day that I think that this is enough and it's time for a change. Now, I think that what they're doing is his loss at Mania and his loss in SmackDown Live. He's going to the Greatest Royal Rumble and facing the Undertaker in a casket match. Now, my theory is that Undertaker requested to work with Rusev. Okay? That's why they're having this match. That's why he lost at Mania. That's why he lost on SmackDown Live, because they want him to focus on the casket match with the Undertaker at the Greatest Royal Rumble. Now, what I think is going to happen is that the Undertaker is going to win, and Undertaker is going to be put in that casket, and it's going to be a literal metaphor of Rusev burying this part of his journey. You know, that this part of the journey is ending, and he's going to move over to Raw. He's going to be repackaged as a babyface. Same Rusev Day, same everything, but just repackaged and presented as a babyface instead of this whole, are you supposed to cheer him? Are you not supposed to cheer him kind of thing? And I think that over on Raw, he would be positioned to be able to take over for Samoa Joe or Seth Rollins in that top mid-card act before moving up into the main event scene. And I think that is the reason why all of this is happening right now. The other thing that I would do, and we're going to finish up on this topic here, is the Balor Club ruling on SmackDown. And I think that Finn Balor and the Good Brothers moving over to SmackDown, turning into a heel faction, and slowly working AJ Styles into that. And I think that you can build a whole story over the course of a year between Finn Balor and AJ Styles leading up to a match at WrestleMania. Now, after a year of storytelling between Finn Balor, the Balor Club, and using the whole history of the Bullet Club and their history in Japan, it all culminates at WrestleMania 35 with Finn Balor and AJ Styles. And then after that match, they all come together as the Balor Club or whatever the faction is called. The four of them get together. Next night on Raw, Undisputed Era debuts, and then we have an entire year of the four-person AJ Styles, Finn Balor, the Good Brothers, as the actual Balor Club versus the Undisputed Era for an entire year before that culminates at WrestleMania 36. And I think that is a really, really good plan to put all of them in, because it will be very fan-pleasing. Whether they have a world title picture, whether they have the world title in that picture or not, is beside the point. I think that fans will accept that as something that those guys can do for years to come without the need of them being in the actual top echelon. So that way they can get their guys like Roman Reigns or Braun Strowman as their top guys. So that's basically the whole entire weekend in a nutshell. Next week is going to be a very, very interesting week. I'm very excited to see where WWE goes from here, and I'm excited to see how fans respond to what's going to happen at the Greatest Royal Rumble and with Brock Lesnar and Roman Reigns. We'll be back next week with more Wrestling on Tap. Until the next time, please like, share, and subscribe. Leave your comments below as to what you thought of WrestleMania 34, what you think is going to happen in the Superstar Shakeup. And if you have any comments for the show, let me know. You guys keep on living that dream, and we'll see you next week.